on the board today on the topic Law on Live-in Relationships. She is a founder and a partner of a full-time law firm, Kanika Bhardwaj Law Firm, having its office in South Delhi. She is a practicing advocate having experience of more than 6 years in the field of litigation. She has graduated her law from Lloyd Law College and completed her master's with Amity University in business law. She is a versatile in practice in all type of matters, including matrimonial, domestic violence, criminal, civil, real estate, etc. Hello? Can I continue, ma'am?
Yes, ma'am, we're hearing.
Presently, she has been working on cases all over Delhi and Bombay, all District Court, High Court of Delhi and Bombay, and Supreme Court. Not only this, she is also in the panel of Yamuna Expressway Industrial Development, Noida. So we are glad to have you here on the board today, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for sparing your time. Over to you, ma'am.
All right. First of all, I would like to thank Nitesh Mehra sir and the associates for inviting me here for this webinar. I'm really glad to be a speaker here. I hope this session will be knowledgeable for all the viewers who are watching it. So today's topic is about laws and provisions on live-in relationship in India. We will be discussing about this topic in detail. Today's webinar will be more in context of a judicial approach rather than a practical approach, but though I will be dealing in practical approach also, but it will be more as of a judicial approach. Though I will be discussing, as I told, I will be discussing the practical aspect also, but there are several judgments that we will be discussing about in this topic. Also, it is important to understand all these judgments and to know about all these judgments to understand the concept of live-in relationship, because we know that there is no such law as if there is no such legislation as of now. There is only judicial approaches. So let's start with today's topic, which is laws on live-in relationship in India. Am I audible to everyone?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Thank you. So first, we'll start with the session laws on live-in relationship in India. As we know that India is a country of cultural values and rituals and ceremonies cannot afford to plunge into Western society. But since growing economy and people getting more and more aware, India finally has to step ahead and walk with the rest of the world by legalizing live-in relationships. The Indian society has observed a drastic change in living patterns in India from the past few years. People are slowly and gradually opening their minds towards the idea of premarital sex and live-in relationships. However, this change has been continuously under criticism, which is a fact, and highly discussed as such concepts lack legality and acceptance by the society. So unlike marriage, in live-in relationships, couples are not married to each other, but they live under the same roof in a shared household, which actually resembles a relation like marriage only, but it cannot be said as marriage. So this concept has certain good aspects and certain bad aspects. The good aspects in contest that now such relationships are being recognized by the law in our country, which were earlier not recognized. But the bad aspect of this particular topic for people is, and for people who are living in live-in relationship, is that the female live-in partner will never get the rights which are equal to wife. There will be always a gap. We can say there always a gap between a wife and a female live-in partner, and obviously the wife will be on a superior position. So also I want to tell you that law takes its own time, and we also observe the same. that the law takes its own time to articulate such social changes through a process of amendment. This is the only reason why in a changing society, law cannot afford to remain static. Law is always changing and it is dynamic. If one looks at the history of development of Hindu law, it will be clear that it was never static and has changed from time to time to meet the challenges of the changing social platform in the different times. So now we'll come up on the part of introduction. So let me introduce what live-in relationship is basically. So live-in relationship pre-existed in India. It is not a new concept. It pre-existed in India from ancient times. However, the term might differ. You will be surprised to know that even in our Vedic Vedas and Shastras, they have a mention of 8 type of marriages, and live-in relationship was one of the type of marriages which was recognized in our Vedas and Shastras in that time. So live-in relationship earlier was void ab initio. It was void ab initio. It was not recognized. But then came a judgment by Supreme Court in 1978. So the first judgment that came, the first concept that was actually recognized by our Indian culture was in 1978. The name of the judgment is Badri Prasad versus Deputy Director of Consolidation, 1978. You can again note it down if you're noting it down. Badri Prasad versus Deputy Director of Consolidation, 1978. You can easily find this judgment on Google and read over. Though the laws and directions related to it were not clear at that time, but at least this concept is recognized in the society. This was the first case in which the Supreme Court of India recognized live-in relationship. In this case, the court gave legal validity to a 50-year legal relationship of a couple. So the couple were into live-in relationship since 50 years, and the court gave legality to the same. It was held by Justice Krishna Iyer that a strong presumption arises in favor of wedlock. Obviously, when the couple are living since 50 years together, so a strong presumption arises in favor of wedlock where the partners have lived together for a long term as husband and wife. Although the presumption is rebuttable, no doubts, but heavy burden lies on him who seeks to deprive the relationship as its legal origin. So this was the first case where the concept of legal relationship came in. Again, it was also mentioned in this judgment also. It was also discussed in this judgment only that if the requisites of a marriage, such as age, mental soundness, fulfillment, the same requisites as it is given in the Hindu Marriage Act, the same requisites, if are fulfilled and all the requisites are satisfied, the couple will be considered to be as married. So this was the first judgment that came into our Indian culture. Now I'll go on the next topic, which is what is live-in relationship. So the definition of the legal definition of live-in relationship is not recognized anywhere, but since from the various judgments time to time we are able to understand the concept. The definition of live-in relationship is an arrangement of living under which the couple which are unmarried live together to conduct a long-going relationship similarly as in marriage. Live-in relationships refer to a cohabitation of a male and a female without being bound by the legal obligations of marriage. Live-in relationship in simple terms can be explained as a relationship in the nature of marriage where both the partners enjoy individual freedom and live in a shared household. This is a very important topic and a very important point that they should live in a shared household. If they're not living in a shared household, it cannot be considered as a live-in relationship, because nowadays we see there are relationships of girlfriend and boyfriend also. So if there is no shared household, even girlfriend and boyfriend can come up and ask for their rights from the court. So it is not the case in live-in relationship. Shared household is mandatory. Shared household without being married to each other, and they should not be married obviously. It involves continuous cohabitation between the parties without any responsibilities or obligations towards one another. But there is no legal definition of live-in relationship, and in this way, the lawful status of such sort of connection is likewise unverified. However, court has clarified the concept of live-in relationship through various judgments. Though law is still unclear about the status of such relationship, yet few rights have been granted by interpreting and by amending the the already existing laws, so that the misuse of such relationships can be prevented by the partners. Several judgments have been passed by Supreme Court to clear the rights and remedies under the live-in relationship. Um, so again, I would like to quote one of a very important judgment which came in 2010. Uh, in this particular judgment, it was said, okay, yes, in this particular judgment, it was said that being in a live-in relationship is not an offense. This judgment came in 2010. The Supreme Court in this case dropped all the charges which were against the petitioner, who was a South Indian actress. The lady was charged under Section 499 of IPC, and it was also claimed that the lady endorsed premarital sex and live-in relationships. The court held that living together is not illegal in the eyes of law, even if it is considered immoral in the eyes of the conservative Indian society. The court stated that living together is a right to life and therefore not illegal at all. So one judgment came in 2010. Uh, the court had a view that a man and a woman living together without marriage cannot be constituted as an offense. When two adult people want to live together, and so what is the offense in that? Thus, living together is not an offense, and it was observed by the three bench judge, uh, Chief Justice KG Balakrishnan and Deepak Verma, and Justice BS Chauhan observed that the court said, this was in this particular case only, that the court said that even Lord Krishna and Radha used to live in a live-in relationship according to our myths. So the Supreme Court held that living relationship comes within the ambit of right to life under Article 21 also. So apart from the Vedas and Shastras, the Supreme Court has taken into consideration the Article 21 of the Constitution also. Article 21 is right to life. And the court further is of the view that live-in relationships are permissible, and the act of two major living together cannot be considered as illegal or unlawful, because when one particular human being, when it becomes major, it is their right to life. It comes under their right to life that they have the right to choose their partners also, and they have the right to choose whether they want to get into a tie up or a knot of marriage or not. So it is their particular individual's decision. Nobody can actually force upon such things, and therefore the court has observed that such kind of relationships is no offense, it is legal. Further, in the case of Payal Sharma versus Superintendent Nari Niketan and others, Justice M. Kaju and Justice R.B. Mishra has stated that in their opinion, a man and a woman, even without getting married, can live together if they wish to. This may be regarded as immoral by the society, but it is not illegal at all. There is a difference between law and morality. It was further ruled that a lady of about 21 years of age, being a major, has the right to go anywhere and with anyone. Man and woman, even without getting married, can live together if they wish to. And there is another judgment of Radhika versus State of MPC. All these judgments, it's important to quote all these judgments, since I've already told you that there is no particular legislation or act on this topic, which is live-in relationship. So what we are doing here is we are from time to time interpreting the judgments given by the Supreme Court, and even now also, when any particular case of live-in relations comes between the comes on the record, comes in the front of the judge, we only have to interpret the judgments which are already given. So therefore, it is important to quote all these judgments. That is why in the starting I said that this session will be more of a judicial approach. So coming up to the another very important judgment called as Radhika versus State of MP. The Supreme Court in this judgment observed that a man and a woman are involved in a live-in relationship for a long period. If a man and woman are involved in a relationship for a long period, they will treat it as a married couple only, and their child will be called legitimate. So this is the first judgment which came into the record, that in which it was said that the child born out of the live-in relationship will be called as legitimate and not illegitimate at all. And also very important thing that has been mentioned in the judgment is that the couple who are living into a live-in relationship since a very long time, they will be treated as if they're a married couple only. Now then came a very historic judgment. Yeah. Then came a very historic judgment in the year 2013. This is one of the most important judgments where the categories of live-in relationship has been defined. Before this particular judgment in 2003, before 2013, there was no categories of live-in relationship. This was the very first time where the categories has been defined. So these are the five. There are the five categories. Yeah, there are the five categories that has been defined under this particular judgment. The first one is, all the categories defines the live-in relationship only, but their consequences and their applicability is different. So the first one is the simplest form of and the most uncomplicated sort of a relationship, which is a domestic relationship between an adult male and an adult female, but both are unmarried. So in this category, both are adult and are living into a domestic relationship. So this is the most uncomplicated sort of a relationship. But then comes the second category, where domestic relationship between between a married man and an adult unmarried woman entered knowingly. So a married man living in a relationship in a shared household with an unmarried woman, and they entered it knowingly that the girl know that the guy is married. So this is also categorized as one of the category. Third one is domestic relationship between an adult unmarried man and a married woman. So here the man is unmarried and the woman is married, entered knowingly. So they have entered into the relationship knowingly. Such relationship can lead to a earlier such conviction can lead to a conviction in IPC for the crime of adultery, but now since a judgment has come that they say that adultery cannot be treated as a criminal offense, so now adultery is only the ground for divorce and cannot be treated as under Indian Penal Code. So it cannot lead to conviction though, but again it is a ground for divorce. So it is a kind of a relationship which can be called as adultery also and biogamy also. And the fourth one is domestic relationship between an unmarried adult female and a married man entered knowingly. The last one is domestic relationship between same-sex partners, which we call LGBT, gay or lesbian. So another reason why this judgment is very important, because the LGBT rights were recognized in this particular judgment. If you'll go through this particular judgment, Indra Sharma versus VKV Sharma 2013, you'll get to know various aspects about various key aspects about the live-in relationship. So the important point to note here is that live-in relationship of LGBT was, as I said, was also recognized here, which was the big win for LGBT though. Therefore, it is quite clear that contrary to the conservative views that the Indian society hold, the Apex Court and the High Court have gone forward with a positive mentality in trying to protect this emerging culture of live-in relationship in a positive manner, while at the same time warning the parties engaged in such relationship to be aware of the dire consequences that such bond, that what are the legal consequences of such bond. So the both Supreme Court and High Court has taken it in a very positive manner, but they have tried to explain the positive part also and the negative part also. So next topic we will be discussing about is Domestic Violence Act under live-in relationship, because it is a very important topic here. Uh, for the very first time in India, in Protection of a Women from Domestic Violence Act 2005, the legislature has acknowledged live-in relationship by giving rights and protection to those females who are not legally married, but rather are living with a male individual in a relationship which is in the idea of marriage, additionally akin to wife, however not equivalent to wife. So this is the first time, the first act and the only act in India which recognizes and uh, uh, gives a legislation to live-in relationship. Other than this, there is no particular act. Yes, we know that Domestic Violence Act was introduced with the main aim to protect women who are under domestic relationship. Thus, under this act, certain rights and remedies were given to a woman who are into living relationship, because abuse and force upon women, whether mental, emotional, or financial, shouldn't be tolerated, and whoever do so shall be punished. The court stated that a live-in relationship will fall within the expression of relationship in the nature of marriage under section 2 clause F of the Protection of Women Against Domestic Violence Act 2005, and provided certain guidelines to get an insight of such relationships. uh, Also, there should be a close analysis of the entire relationship. In other words, all the facts of the interpersonal relationship need to be taken into account, including the individual factors also. So, Section 2F of Domestic Violence Act defines the domestic relationship, which, as you can see on your slide also, what does it mean? It means a relationship between two persons who live or have at any point of time lived together in a shared household when they are related by consanguinity marriage through a relationship in the nature of marriage, adoption, or are family members living together as a joint family. So though live-in relationship is not categorically defined in the act, but left to the courts, left on the courts for the interpretation. By the virtue of aforementioned provision, the court interpreted the expression relationship in the nature of marriage. The provisions of Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act are presently made applicable to the individuals who are in live-in relationships. Court presume live-in relationships to be covered under the ambit of the expression, as the words nature of marriage and live-in relationships stand on the same line and meaning. This gives women some basic right to protect themselves and protect from the abuses and protect from the fraudulent marriages and cruel relationships. Now, another very important law that was established by the court, that not only women can, yeah, so another very important law was established in this particular judgment. It was said that the Delhi High Court has held the female living in a living relationship in the nature of marriage. Uh, this particular word is coming again and again, which is in the nature of marriage, and we'll discuss about it in very detail. So the Delhi High Court has held that female living in a relationship in the nature of marriage has right to file complaint not only against husband or male partner, but also against the relatives of the male partner also. This is a judgment of Varsha Kapoor versus Union of India and others. So now this is also very much clear that a female live-in partner can, obviously she can file a domestic violence case against the male live-in partner, but she can also file DV case against the relatives and against the parents of the male live-in partners. So the next topic we'll be taking is relief under domestic violence case to women. And we'll also know that when a woman comes to file a domestic violence case, and she files a domestic violence case, what orders can a judge pass? So the court can pass an order to prohibit, number one, committing any act of domestic violence. The court will make sure that by anything, by either judicial custody or by any other action, the court will make sure that he prohibits the other person from committing any act of domestic violence. Number second is aiding or abetting in the commission of acts of domestic violence. Number third is entering the place of employment of the aggrieved person. Yes, the court can also prohibit the other party to entering the place of employment of the aggrieved person, or if the person aggrieved is a child, it is school or in its school or any other place frequented by the aggrieved party. Number fourth is attempting to communicate in any form whatsoever with the aggrieved person, including personal, oral, or written, or electronic, or telephonic contact. So the judge can make sure, the court can make sure that the court prohibits attempting to communicate from the other party also, because ultimately they have to protect the woman who is into live-in, and she has approached the court under DV. So the judges can take following steps. The fifth one is prohibiting alienating any assets, operating bank lockers or bank accounts used or held or enjoyed by both the parties, jointly by the aggrieved person and the respondent, or singly by the respondent, including her stridhan or any other property held either jointly by the parties or separately by them without the leave of the magistrate. So the concept of stridhan also comes in here. The court can prohibit the other party, the male live-in partner, from using all these, from alienating the assets and operating the bank workers and using all the financial things, using the bank accounts and using this stridhan. So the court can prohibit that also. The sixth one is causing, the court can prohibit causing violence to the dependents, other relatives, or any other person who give the aggrieved person assistance from the domestic violence. And the last one is committing any act as specified in the protection order. So in addition, magistrates can also pass restraining orders. Magistrates can also pass restraining orders accused to provide monetary reliefs to the to the accused person, to the one who has been abused and the one who has been a victim. The court can pass an order for the interim and monetary reliefs also. The court can order for compensation to a victim. The court can order medical expenses or loss of earnings, if any. The court can also order to return the stridhan of a female live-in partner. This particular concept of stridhan, you will see this concept in marriages only, that the wife only has the right to get back her stridhan. But now the court has recognized the concept of stridhan in live-in relationship also, and the court can ask the male live-in partner to return the stridhan, which means the jewelries and all expensive articles. Yeah, so the court can ask from a male live-in partner to return the stridhan also. The court may also ask to return amount to women if borrowed, because in live-in relationships there might be a possible case where the male partner have asked for the loan amount from the woman, and she has, because she was in a live-in relationship on that particular pretext of perception, she has given the loan amount to the male live-in partner. So if this is the case, the court can ask to return the amount to a woman also if borrowed by the male. And the court can also ask to return from male live-in partner all the expenses, articles that used to be in possession of a female live-in partner. So all other than from all these things that we have that you can see on the slides, other than all these orders, the court can also pass these orders. Now we'll come up on the next topic, which is rights of a woman in a live-in relationship under Domestic Violence Act. So, guys, we are doing everything under Domestic Violence Act right now. So everything we'll be talking about will be in context of Domestic Violence Act only. So rights of women, what are the rights of women? What women can claim uh, in domestic violence case? So the first thing a woman can claim is right to claim maintenance. After filing the case under this act, a woman in live-in relationship can claim for maintenance. The amount of maintenance will depend upon the lifestyle and the income of both the live-in partners. The next one is right to Stridhan, as already discussed. Even in a live-in relationship, the woman has right to claim her Stridhan back. Stridhan refers to all her jewelries and expensive articles. So it is a well-established law that Stridhan only belongs to a woman, and no one can keep her uh, Stridhan in their possession. So the Stridhan belongs to women only. So this concept has been recognized in live-in relationship now. Then another right she has is right to litigation expenses. Other than maintenance, women can claim her litigation expenses also. The amounts will be decided by the court though after observing all the facts and circumstances. The fourth one is right for her children maintenance and property. So this is also one of the right which can be claimed by women. She can file a petition under section 125 CRPC that we'll be discussing this topic in detail also. She has the right to approach the court to claim both interim and interim maintenance. Also, when the child, also where the child is concerned, because the child born out of a relationship in a live-in relationship, the child is considered to be as legitimate. And the last right that she can possess is the right for compensation. The woman can also ask for compensation from the court because of all of the mental torture and mental harassment, be it mental or financial, whatever she has been suffered through years or through months, she has the right to claim compensation for that also. But another point that I would like to discuss here is that this all these rights are applicable only in the first category of live-in relationship. As I have told you that there are 5 categories of live-in relationship which has been defined uh, uh, in a very famous judgment by the Supreme Court. So under all these 5 categories, only the first categories where the first category is applicable, where the first situation is there, only in that cases all these rights can be availed by a woman. Otherwise, she cannot avail any of the rights. For example, we know that in case of bigamous marriage, where a married man and a unmarried woman or vice versa are living in a bigamous relationship, are living under adultery, though it is called as live-in relationship, but it is also called as bigamy and adultery. So it is pertinent to note that the provisions of DV Act are only applicable in case where both female and male are unmarried and living in a live-in relationship. In case where either woman or man is already married, then the provision of DV case will not apply. There can be no case made out if a relationship is bigamous or the parties are living in a bigamous relationship. The courts have ruled and observed that where marriage itself is treated as null and void, how can domestic relationship exist in such cases? So such relationship have been excluded from the Domestic Violence Act. So this was entire live-in relationship, entire provisions of live-in relationship under the Domestic Violence Act. Now we'll move to the next topic, which is provisions of CRPC regarding in live-in relationship. So the first provision is the first recognition is given by the Domestic Violence Act by the judges, and the second recognition is given by the CRPC by the judges. So in CRPC, on November 2000, there was a committee called Malimat Committee, that is Committee on Reforms and Criminal Justice System. It was set up, the Malimat Committee was set up. And in 2003, when the Malimat Committee submitted the report, it made several recommendations under the head, under the offenses against women. So one of its recommendation was to amend section 125 of CRPC so as to alter the meaning of wife. So till now we have studied and observed that only wife was entitled, and only section 125 was applicable in the case where there is a wife and she's claiming maintenance. But now we will see that the scope of section 125 has been broadened. Even the parents can file a case of 125, old citizens can file a case of 125, and also a woman living in a live-in relationship can file a case under section 125, which is for the maintenance. So owing to this alteration, this provision was made, and now the expression wife incorporate the ladies who were previously in a live-in relationship. So this section has given recognition to female live-in partners in a very precise and very nice manner. Basically, it expresses that if a female has been in a live-in relationship for a sensible period of time, see the number of years or the time period has not been defined anywhere as of now. So what we observe and what we interpret is that there must be a reasonable period of time and there must be a sensible period of time. If a female has been in a live-in relationship for a sensible period of time, she ought to have the legitimate privilege as that of a spouse and can claim maintenance under section 125. But one point another that you have to note here is that the live-in relationship should be existing for a long period of time. You cannot come, any female lady cannot come up to the court and say that she has been into a live-in relationship since 6 months or 7 months and now she wants maintenance. So in this case, the petition would not be allowed and it will be dismissed, uh, because in every case the court observes the facts and circumstances. So it would be so injustice that to the man, to the male live-in partner, that a woman in a relationship of 6 months only is coming up to the court and claiming maintenance. So there is a point that there should be a sensible period of time. So where the partners live together as husband and wife, a presumption would arise in favor of the wedlock only if there is a reasonable amount of time period into the relationship. But still there is a debate going on this particular topic. But let me make you aware of the ground reality that such petitions are being allowed by the judges in the court only considering upon the facts and circumstances of the case. There may be a case where there is a child out of the wedlock, sorry, there may be a child out of the live-in relationship. Then it becomes essential for the court to allow the petition of women under 125 CRPC in order to protect the child and in order to deliver the justice. So thus there are several cases where a court has granted maintenance also to the woman and who is into a live-in relationship in order to financially secure them. It would be so injustice to child. It is a very honest approach also and very layman approach also, that it would be so injustice to child and women if they are not being allowed maintenance. So yes, there are certain circumstances where court is allowing such petitions, but only after considering the facts of the case. It should be just and proper. So this was one of the provision which can be discussed under the live-in relationship. Another topic that I'll be taking up here is that dowry under live-in relationship. So now we have done domestic violence under live-in relationship. We have discussed about 125 CRPC under the live-in relationship, and we have discussed about how it works. Now the third point that I'll be coming up with is dowry under live-in relationship. So as you can see and read on the slide, the Supreme Court held that dowry can occur in a marital or non-marital relationship, but resembling a marriage. Again the point comes in that the relationship, the live-in relationship, should be considered and should be into existence for a long and a reasonable number of years. And again, a woman cannot come up and say that it has been 6 months now, and she comes up and files the case of dowry. It will not be done. So but the Supreme Court is of the view that dowry can comes under the ambit when either other male partner or his in-laws demands dowry. So yes, dowry can also be one of the aspect in live-in relationship, and women can file a case under dowry also. Uh, the Supreme Court has observed that what does dowry mean? Dowry is only an unjust demand of money from the girl. So in the case of Kopi Seti Subaro Subramaniam versus State of Andhra Pradesh, I'm repeating again, you can note it down. Kopi Seti Subaro Subramaniam versus State of Andhra Pradesh, where the defendant would harass the live-in partner for dowry. The court rejected the claim made by him that Section 498 did not apply in this. The High Court said that that Section 498A do not apply in this instance. But immediately, Supreme Court jumps in, and the Supreme Court delivered a landmark judgment as it went a step further to protect the woman from harassment and dowry in a live-in relationship, and allowed the petition of a woman in order to protect her, and directly or indirectly declared that even complaints can be filed in dowry against the live-in partner if he or his family members or his relatives demands for the dowry. So this was the case where Supreme Court jumped in and it allowed the petition of a woman under the dowry. So now dowry can also be considered as one of the provision. Dowry can also be considered as one of the law which has given recognition to live-in relationship. Now the next, I'll be talking about Evidence Act 1872. So a bit of a live-in relationship, a bit of legality has been given to live-in relationship in this Evidence Act also. If we'll read out section 114 of Indian Evidence Act, as you can see on this slide also, it says that the court may assume the presence of any reality. The court will assume. So it is a section basically on the assumption. Assumption can also be taken as an evidence. So it is very clearly written under the law that the court may assume the presence of any reality which it's supposed likely to have happened. Respect being had to the basic course of occasions, human action, and open and private business in their connection to the facts, circumstances, and situation. Therefore, where a man and a lady live respectively for a very long spell of time as a couple, then there would be assumption of marriage. So assumption of marriage under the live-in relationship is clearly and very precisely given, and it is undebatable. It is given under section 114 of Indian Evidence Act. So the next topic I'll be jumping into is status and rights of children born in a live-in relationship. Now we have done almost all the provisions that we had under the law for the live-in relationship. We have covered under domestic violence under 125 CRPC. We have covered dowry also and Evidence Act also. Now we'll be jumping on that. What is the status and rights of children born in a live-in relationship? So, guys, the future of children of live-in relationship becomes very insecure in the case of where there is a live-in relationship. There comes the requirement of a strong provision to safeguard the rights of such children. There must be a provision to secure the future of the child and also entitling the children to share in property in both of the parents. So in comparison to formal marriages, the legitimacy of the children born in the live-in relationship is often questioned. Despite the increasing trend of couples entering in informal relationships, children from these relationships have serious legal implications. Children born to a live-in relationship are considered as legitimate. So I am repeating it again that the children who are born from a live-in relationship are considered to be legitimate children, and they enjoy all rights in property also, and all property, whether it is a self-acquired property or whether it is an ancestral property. The children are because the children are considered as legitimate, they have right in both the properties. Now if we'll read section 16 of Hindu Marriage Act, section 16 of Hindu Marriage Act talks about the legitimacy of children. So a very important judgment, I don't understand the name of the judgment, so I have quoted here on the slide. You can read it. It came under 96 SEC clause 4. You can just read the judgment. So it is a very important judgment where it was said that the children who are born out of a live-in relationship are considered to be legitimate, and they have right in the property also, both self-acquired and ancestral property. The same was established in this particular judgment. And then there is another judgment in the name of Uday Gupta versus Aisha and others, where similar views have been taken by the court. I repeat the name of the judgment, which is Uday Gupta versus Aisha and others. Uh, in both the judgments, though the landmark judgment was one which I am showing you on the slide, the other one is Uday Gupta judgment. In both the judgment, the similar views have been taken. They have considered the children as legitimate and have given the property right to them. So additionally, they have the right to property, not just ancestral but self-acquired also. Since there is no special law for the maintenance of children born out of such relationship, the law decides to provide children with protection. Thus evolved the section of 125 of CRPC. Now section 125 of CRPC again comes into the picture. So now, till now, we know that children have the right in self-acquired property, have right in ancestral property, but they also have right to maintenance also under section 125 of CRPC. Section 125 CRPC provides maintenance to children, whether they are legitimate or illegitimate. Even though it is considered that the children born in this relationship are legitimate, but even the provision is there for illegitimate children also, till they are minors or after majority, if the child is unable to maintain himself. Nevertheless, the court in the case of Dimple Gupta versus Rajiv Gupta held in the furtherance of the above stated view that the children from live-in relationship have the right to maintenance. This particular statement was given in the case of Dimple Gupta versus Rajiv Gupta. Guys, all these judgments are very easily available from into Google. There is no need to use SCC or Manupatra or intense research. You will easily get it on Google. Again under this only, in the status of rights of children, comes section 112 of Evidence Act, which recognizes a legitimate child only if it was born during the continuance of valid marriage between the mother and the father. Earlier there was a law that a child was considered to be a legitimate child only when it was born to a mother and father who are married, which is given under section 112 of Evidence Act. But now the entire scenario has been changed. Also, I would like to quote another case, which is Tulsa versus Durgatia. Tulsa versus Durgatia. The Supreme Court awarded legal status to the children born from a live-in relationship, having said that the court also mentioned that the couple are living under this particular relationship since 12 years, and the child has born out of the said wedlock. The court gave them, the children, the legal status, and the court has said and announced in open court that the children, that the child born out of this relationship is considered to be legitimate. Okay, so now another point that comes under this only, under the status and rights of children only, a tab comes of adoption. So also there are a number of cases where a live-in partner wishes to adopt a child, and the number of such cases were increasing day by day. So on June 2018, the Central Adoption Resource Authority, which is called as CARA, has barred couple in a live-in relationship from adopting a child. So a couple who are living under a live-in relationship cannot adopt a child at all. They have been barred, and yes, they have been barred in June 2018 via order of the CARA. So next topic that I'm coming on is when a live-in relationship will be treated similar to a marriage. This is a very important point because most of the live-in relationship, the most important hurdle, the most difficult part comes here to the parties have to prove that this relationship was similar to a marriage. So the court has recognized this particular provision and have passed various judgments also. But one of the very important judgment, I have given the citation on the slide. As you can see, In the bottom, it is this is a citation, and you can go it on Google and find it out, the entire judgment. So when a live-in relationship will be treated similar to marriage. If we look and study the judgments on live-in relationship, we can observe that certain rights are granted and executed only in the cases where live-in relationship is said to be similar as marriage. If the live-in relationship is not said to be similar as marriage, the rights are not been granted to them. So it is important to prove that the relationship they were into was similar to marriage only. Merely spending weekends together or one night stand would not make it a domestic relationship. It also held that if a man has a keep that he maintains financially and uses mainly for sexual purpose, and or as a servant, it would not be a relationship in the nature of marriage. So, in what circumstances a marriage can be treated as similar to marriage? So, as per this particular judgment, a live-in relationship will be considered as similar to marriage if these four conditions are satisfied. Once these four conditions are satisfied, it will be considered as a relationship which is similar to marriage only, and the rights will be granted by the court very easily, or else you will face hardships. So the first requirement, the first criteria is legal age to marry. The second one is qualified to enter legal marriage. Both the parties must qualify to enter into a legal marriage.
Article 51A subclause G.
The third one is
This judgment
must be unmarried. Both the parties must be unmarried, because if one of the parties married and one of the parties unmarried, it will again attract bigamy and adultery.
In the NCR of Delhi.
So yes, the third is must be unmarried. And the fourth one is voluntary cohabitation should be for a considerable period of time. So these are the four requirements that parties have to satisfy to make it relationship. I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm getting a lot of noise from somebody's mic.
We need Supreme Court too.
A lot of voice. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so yes, these are four of the terms which should be satisfied in order to show the relationship, show your live-in relationship which is equal or similar to marriage. In addition to the above, Supreme Court in Indira Sharma case has added to the above. These four points are there, but just to add more of the points, these are the additional points that have been added in order to recognize whether a particular relationship is equal to marriage or not, or similar to marriage or not. So the first one is duration of relationship. So under section 2 clause F of DV Act, the expression at any point of time has been used, which means a reasonable period of time to maintain and continue a relationship, which may vary from case to case depending upon the fact situation. So it means that if you'll go if you'll go and read section 2 clause F of Domestic Violence Act, only there is no particular time period defined. Only few words have been mentioned. The few words are at any point of time. So we have to interpret these particular words at any point of time, which can be interpreted as a reasonable period of time. So the second one is shared household. The expression has been defined under section 2 clause S of DV Act, which means a household where the person aggrieved lives at or have been lived at any stage in a domestic relationship, either singly along with the respondent, and includes such a household whether owned or tenanted, doesn't matter whether it is owned or tenanted, either jointly by the aggrieved person and the respondent, either jointly or singly. So this is also one of the important aspects, that there must be a shared household, and the judges should interpret that whether the particular live-in relationship is considered as a marriage or not, by analyzing that whether there was a shared household or not, or what is the duration of relationship. The third one is pooling of resources and financial arrangement between the parties. So supporting each other or any one of them financially, sharing bank accounts, acquiring immovable properties in the joint names or in the name of the woman, long-term investments in business, shares in separate and joint names, so as to have a long-standing relationship, may be a guide factor. Other point is domestic arrangements. Entrusting the responsibilities, especially on the woman, to run the home, do the household activities like cleaning, cooking, maintaining or upkeeping of the house, etc., is an indication of a relationship in the nature of marriage. The fifth one is children. Obviously, if there are children, then automatically the relationship will be similar to marriage only. Having children is a strong indication of a relationship in the nature of marriage. Parties therefore intend to have a long standing relationship, sharing the responsibility for upbringing of the children and supporting them is also a strong, very strong indication, I must say. The sixth one is a socialization of relationship in public. Holding out to be the public and socializing with friends, relationship, and others as if they are husband and wife uh, is also a strong indication that they have a relationship which is similar to marriage. If the couple is a couple are going to parties and are going to religious functions and everywhere together, and they are pretending and they're showing themselves as husband or wife in the gatherings in the front of the public, so obviously this is one of the indications where it can be treated as the relationship is similar to marriage only. And the seventh and the last one is intention and conduct of the parties. So common intention of the parties as to what their relationship is, and to evolve, and as to the respective roles and responsibility primarily determines the nature of the relationship. So if this is the case where it is proved that the live-in relationship is as similar to the marriage, then it will be much easier for the female live-in partner or the aggrieved person or the victim to come to the court and ask for the rights, and there is a possibility that you will win your case, or else your case will be really weak if you are not able to prove that your live-in relationship is not similar to a marriage. So now the last topic of the session, I'll be discussing about challenges that women can face in live-in relationship, which is obviously in a legal aspect. The first challenge she can face is to prove that her live-in relation is similar to the marriage, as we have already discussed. That it becomes important that she will have to prove the point. Otherwise, women will not be entitled to get any of the relief from the court. Unlike in marriage, it is really difficult to prove uh, the same point in front of the court, because marriage has a proof, but in live-in relationship one can break up at any point of time without any legal process. There is a possibility that other party may use it as is their defense, and can always say that the lady living with me, we had a breakup, and she continued to live in with me even after they broke up. So how will you prove all these allegations? So it is important to prove all these allegations. Then only you will be able to win your case, and then only you will be entitled to the rights. Because as in India, all these rights are not well established. They are only coming up from the judicial approach. So the law is developing. So if you want your case to be strong, you have to prove the point that your live-in relationship was similar to marriage. The second challenge that a woman can face in live-in relationship is she will never be entitled to equal status as of a wife. It is quite harsh to hear, but the courts are of perception that if exactly equal rights are given to the female live-in partner as a wife, then a situation may arise that the essence of marriage will adversely affect the very essence of marriage will only dissolve. People in coming generation will jump up to live-in relationship in huge numbers. Also, it will promote adultery and bigamy, which are the ground for divorce under Section 13 of Hindu Marriage Act 1955. So it will destroy more marriages, and could always believe in making the marriage and not destroying the marriage. So this is one of the harsh reality, that there would be no law which will come either now or in future, that the female living in a live-in relationship will get equal status as of the wife, though she can get a similar status but not equal status at all. The third challenge that a woman can face, is fight for a status of child. So it is the worst nightmare for a woman to fight for a legal status of a child. And this can be a scenario under such relationship, and she might have to fight for rights of a child. even though there are provisions, as we have discussed above, that she can file a petition under Section 145, she can claim her right in the properties of the partner, whether self-acquired or ancestral. She can choose all these channels, but again, that she has to fight for her for the legal status of the child. The child indeed suffers, but the woman also suffers in the entire life, because legal proceedings are not just a matter of a month; it is a matter of years. And the last important challenge that she will face at that, no right in property. A female living under a live-in relationship has no right in the property, as live-in relationships are not recognized by any particular legislation in India. Thus, merely because there is a cohabitation, it doesn't mean that the partner can get right in property of the other partner. Court cannot grant a right in property of other partner in such relationships. However, however, there is a point that if they have entered into a will, or if they have entered into an agreement, then it is a different case. But when a male partner or a female partner has died in a state without leaving a will or agreement behind, then the property cannot be shared. No one can claim woman cannot claim the share in property of the male living partner. So these were basically the challenges that women may face in live-in relationship. So now we have discussed all the possible provisions of provisions and laws which we have in India on on live-in relationships. So now, if you have any questions or anything, you can ask me right now. And
Yeah,
all
now,
over to.
yeah, thank you, Kanika, for such an informative session. Now I request Shobit to kindly take it over from here and take questions one by one of the viewers who have posted in the chat box. Shobit, can you hear me?
Shobit, you're mute.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Sorry. I'm checking the question, sir. Ma'am, the first question is by Amit Sharma ji. Is two females are in live-in relationship, can one female file domestic violence case against another?
Yes, it can be done, because as I've already explained you, that there were 5 categories of live-in relationship, and we have already seen in the slide that I would like to show you again. I'll show it to you. Just give me a second. Yeah, so yeah, this is a judgment which you can read, Indra Sarma versus VKV Sarma of 2013, where 5 categories of live-in relationship has been defined, and the 5th one is domestic relationship between same-sex partners. So yes, if 2 female partners are living together and they enter, and one of the female partner is abusing the other one, then she can come up to the court and can file a case under Domestic Violence Act.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, the another question is by Daksha, ma'am. Is there any provision of relief for men under domestic violence? Also, in case of same-sex relationship, do such provisions apply?
Okay, so the answer to the first one is that no, the man do not have any legal right. As of now, there is no legal provision which is specific or precisely that talks about the rights of the men. So there is no such provision like that as of now, but I'm sure there will be many judgments that have given some benefits to the man, but there is no precise law or provision on that. And what was the second question, Mr. Shobit?
Ma'am, also in case of same-sex relationship, do such provisions apply, ma'am?
Yes, yes, obviously, such provisions apply. See, when particular domestic relationship has been recognized, then obviously the provisions will apply to them also. But then, depending upon the facts and circumstances of the case, the court will take actions, because we know that the provisions right now are not so well established. And as I've mentioned it several times in my session, that we are only using judicial approach and interpretation for the same. So answer to the question is yes, it can happen, but then again, the facts and circumstances of the case has to be taken into consideration.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, the next question is by Professor Acharya. His question is, why do we feel under pressure to be in live-in relationship, and then the Indian couple typically deal with infidelity?
Can you just repeat the question?
Oh, I'll do that, ma'am. Ma'am, the question is, why do we feel under pressure to be in a live-in relationship, and then the Indian couple typically deal with infidelity?
See, the question that why do we feel
Under pressure, ma'am.
Yeah, the thing that why do we feel under pressure is something that we as a human beings in the society, in the Hindu culture, we are under constant pressure of one thing or the other. But as of now, there is no legal provision on that, so there is no judicial approach on that also. So it is very it would be very debatable answer to this question, though nothing has been well established. So this to answer this question, it's going to be a very debatable one and a very complicated one, though.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, I'll just take another question. It is by Mr. Adarsh Gupta ji. What is the difference between bigamy and adultery?
It's one of the same thing only. Bigamy and adultery, it's one of the same thing. In both the cases, one of the party is married and another is unmarried, or maybe both the parties are married. So it's one of the same thing only, and both are the grounds for divorce. Earlier, they were the grounds of it was a criminal section under IPC also, but since a recent judgment it has been eradicated as a criminal offense as under the IPC, but the both are same and can be a ground of divorce under Section 13 of Hindu Marriage Act 1955.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, with your permission, ma'am, another question is by Advocate Zoya Mehta. How do we prove the existence of Tridan? That it is under the possession of husband or husband's family?
See, there are various options how you can prove the existence of Tridan. But you have to play smart in that. Whenever you are taking Tridan, you have to take it on your name and not any other's name. And then there are you can make videos, and you can just keep the bill with you. You have to play a little smart, because this is the only point that comes in that to prove merely making allegations are very easy in all these cases, and to prove these cases are very difficult. So once has proved that Sridhan is there, you can either give the bills that you have purchased, that the Sridhan belongs to you. You can make video recordings which are considered to be as an evidence in the court in the matrimonial cases, and which can be bring on record, and you can prove your point. So in this particular, you have to prove there is no legal provision that how you will how you will prove that the dowry is in whose possession. But this is, you have to play smart in this particular thing.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, another question is by Mr. Vishalji. What has been the conviction percentage for DV in live-in relationships, as there can be false cases too if things don't work out between both? What rights do men have here, as you mentioned about female rights? How they can protect themselves from false cases if any in such relationship?
Okay, so it's a question in different parts. So what is the first part of the question?
The first part is, what is the convention percentage for DV in live-in relationship, as there can be false cases too?
See, yes, it is true that there can be false cases too, and there are false cases, and it is a huge number where the women are misusing this particular legislation, which is meant for their protection. But the misuse of such laws are in huge numbers, and this is the only reason why now there are no immediate arrest. Because before now, you can see that now Section 498A has come up. Earlier it was Section 498 only. So A stands for amendment. The judicial officers have amended the act in the favor of men only, so that because they know that the large number of false cases are coming to the court, so even the bail is very easily can be granted easily by the court nowadays. So these are all benefits only which men are getting, though there is no specific provision, specific rights of men which are defined anywhere. But there are several developments through the judgments in which the case of the female, the case of the women are being dismissed, and the men are being winning the cases. So, and what was the other next part of the question?
Ma'am, thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, the other part is what rights do men have here, as you mentioned about female rights? How can they protect themselves from false cases, if any, in any such relationship? How can
Yeah,
they
so
protect, ma'am?
yeah, so the first thing, see, the man or the husband or the man can only create their defense in such of the cases, because the man has only one right to file divorce, nothing else. So he has to make his defense. Now, how will he make his defense? Is he will have to he should, number one is he should do frequent complaints in police stations if such incidents are happening. For example, if a girl is giving threats, or threats to commit suicide, or is been creating such a atmosphere which is negative, or is abusing, verbal abuse is there, bad behavior is there, or if she's doing any kind of negative thing, you have to approach the police station on that particular moment itself. You have to call 100 number. There is always a record of 100 number. Once you call 100 number, police stations will have always the record of that you have called 100 number on this particular time, on this particular day. So you have to make incidents, make number of incidents. You have to inform the authorities on frequent basis. So as when you come to the court, you will be able to prove that you have been active in taking steps. You have done your duty. But now the authorities are not doing anything. That is not under your hands. So then the judge will come up, and then the judge will save you from all these false allegations and everything. So you have to do frequent complaints. Number two is you can do video recordings. Whenever such incidents is happening, that see, one of the what I advise basically to my clients is that I say them that you use CCTV in the home. If the things are getting worsened, you can use CCTV at your home. So the second thing is that you keep recordings with yourselves. Nobody can actually question a recording. Nobody can actually question a video recording. The third thing is you can keep audio recordings. Whenever you're talking on phone, you can just audio record it, and you can prove it in the court, bring it on their record. Number four is that even the WhatsApp chats and all these things are considered to be the secondary evidence in the court. So you can use that also as your evidence. So as I told, that the law is there, but you have to play smart. Everything is there. The man can use all these things for his defense. And it is not the case that courts are not courts not hear to a man. They do hear to man unless you are able to prove your case very nicely.
Thank you, ma'am. So, ma'am, with your permission, can I ask last two questions? There are two questions. Nitesh, sir, can I ask? Okay. So, ma'am, the first question is, can you update about prenuptial agreement, whether they are constitutional valid? It's a question by Mr. Ali.
See, this is a very nice question, because in other countries, like USA and Australia and all, this particular form of agreement is being drafted and reduced into writing before the couple goes into a live-in relationship. They draft an agreement, such agreement, that what will be the responsibilities, and the entire relationship is guided by that particular agreement also. And this agreement, even though even there is no such judgment as of now that whether this agreement will be valid or not. But this under the Indian Contract Act, when two parties enter into an agreement, the agreement is said to be valid only, and both the parties eventually the agreement eventually becomes binding on them. So if you are making an agreement before entering into a live-in relationship, that agreement will be very much valid, and all the clauses can be considered, and both the parties will be bound, and the court will actually direct those parties to act upon that particular agreement only. So there might also be a case where an agreement or division of property has also been mentioned, where the financial transactions has also been mentioned. So all these things will be considered, and the agreement will be very much valid in the court.
Ma'am, thank you, ma'am, for your time. Ma'am, last question is by Ms. Sujata ji. Ma'am, the question is, live-in relationship can get maintenance?
Yes.
Ma'am, okay.
I just want you to repeat the question. Can a
Thank you.
female living partner can get maintenance? You mean to say?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, yes. That is, I think, the questions.
Yeah, so yes, the female live-in partner will be entitled to maintenance, but as I've already told that there is one of the challenge that she has to face is that she has to prove in the court that she can come up to the court and she can file a maintenance case under 125 CRPC. But then in order to win that case, she has to prove that the marriage was that their relationship of live-in relationship was similar to marriage only, and I've already explained various points and various judgments where how in order to explain you that how judges will actually consider and analyze that whether a particular live-in relationship is considered to be similar as marriage or not. So after considering all these points, you have to prove in court that your live-in relationship was as similar as marriage only. Then only you will be entitled and awarded amount of maintenance. All your case will be dismissed.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for all the answers.
Thank you, Shobit, for taking up the questions, and thank you once again, Kanika, for giving so explanatory answers to all the questions one by one. Now I request Kriti to take up the thanking note for the today. Welcome, Kriti.
Sir, with your permission, can I ask 2 queries? Because
No. You will post on the chat box. Today you are the host.
okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Kriti, we cannot hear you. We cannot hear you.
Hello.
Yeah, now we can hear you.
Okay. Am I audible, sir?
Yeah. No.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, ma'am, for speaking on such underbench topic in India. The webinar was candid and articulative. The webinar today was also very informative, and not only this, ma'am, by providing such output and law about the topic was of immense knowledge for all of us. The eyes of many would get open on the subject. Last but not the least, we want to thank all our viewers who are with us today in the short journey of today's webinar. Ma'am, we would like to have more such informative session for you on the other subject of law in future. Thank you so much, ma'am, for conducting such a wonderful webinar with us.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir.
Over to you, sir.
Shobit, let me complete, please. Thank you, Kriti, for delivering a wonderful thank you note for our wonderful speaker. Always I say Kanika Bhardwaj. And thank you, Kanika, for once again coming on our board and splendidly speaking on this. And I especially asked and say this as a underbench topic because nobody comes forward to speak on such topics, but you have got this courage to speak and come with the latest judgments on the topic, enriching all the viewers that this topic has also got widened and there are so many scope of law and practice with regard to the different fields. So once again, Kanika, thank you from the bottom of my heart. I also thank to my all the teammates for today, Sanha Bhateja, Shobit Mahant, and Kritik for being with me in associating today's webinar. Thank you, Kanika. We'll see you again in future for more informative webinars. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir.